This was an 8-mark question, and the first thing that it faced you was reading the stimulus information. That's something that you need to do, and make sure that you refer to it. If you've given stimulus, please make sure that that is looked at and that it's utilised throughout your response. There's a couple of elements of the stimulus there. There's some written elements, and there's a picture as well that you could make use of. The injury is to Jarrell Yayi, and your question for this ticket is, which was the last one, was discuss the assessment procedures that would be carried out by the trainer for the above injury. If you didn't read it and you didn't look at it, then you wouldn't have an understanding of what that is. But you had to make sure that you looked at that. In terms of the verb there, we can see that discuss is the key term. If we look at what the Board of Studies again tells us with the glossary term, it's identify the issues and provide points for and or against. So there's the issues that are associated with this particular situation, and you can discuss points for and or against, so you can pick either way that you wish to go. In terms of the question again, so we've got discuss the assessment procedures. So we're looking at assessment procedures that would be carried out by the trainer for the above injury. We know that it's a compound fracture by reading through the article. We see that he had bone sticking out of his boot, which in most situations is a very serious injury, and because it's a compound fracture, we need to be mindful about how we would treat that. The elements of the syllabus that we're looking at is assessment for injuries. It's this area here. So those were the areas that you need to look at. Perform assessment procedures to determine the nature and extent of an injury in simulated scenarios. So that's what you're essentially doing here, as per the sports trainer, what he would be required to do. If we have a look at the guidelines for this, the marking guidelines, to be able to get you into a 7 or 8, you need to discuss all the areas of the toe taps procedure. So you need to look at those and understand those. You need to justify a cessation point of the procedure whilst explaining the remaining elements. So you need to make a decision about when toe taps would be ceased according to this injury, if you were the trainer, and then whilst that would be usually the end of the situation, you'd move the player off there, and there'd be no more nothing else to discuss in terms of that. We wanted you in this response, we made it clear to you that you needed to go through each of the stages or each of the parts of the toe taps procedure. You need to be set out in a clear and logical way, and discuss the Jarrell Yayi, that injury. So you're looking back to the stimulus examples and deeper understanding of the role of the sports medicine trainer. If you didn't get into that 7 or 8, you still were required to discuss the elements of the toe taps. You probably didn't look at when that toe taps situation will be ceased. So that element there is the one that's separated some boys between the top band and the middle band, or the next band down. Still need to support with examples, and you still needed to ensure that you knew each of the stages of the toe taps procedure. For a 3 or 4, you possibly looked at the toe taps and simply named each of those or outlined, and you probably didn't refer to the stimulus at all. So you've probably gone through your answer looking simply at the toe taps procedure, and may have done a good job with that, but you still certainly need to look at the Jarrell Yayi situation. And if you got a 1 or 2, then you've simply identified some elements of the toe tap procedure according to that marking criteria. If we could have a look at a response that we've deemed as being a good response here is in the top bracket. This student is very clearly and straight away it's obvious that they have discussing the Jarrah-Yi situation. They're looking at toe taps, and they've gone systematically through each stage of toe taps. They've also made it specific, so the questions regarding Jarrah-Yi is a pain there. So they've used the stimulus, they've followed the stimulus throughout, and made a decision. You can see here that they've made a decision about the cessation point that is in this part. So I would hope that would happen either in the talk or the observation phase of this procedure, simply because of a compound fracture. You'll be able to see the bone that is exposed, and again that's made note of here. So that made a good judgment in terms of what is expected for this particular situation. If we look at the second part of their response, again they've continued on and continue to show me that they have a deep understanding of the assessment procedure for hard tissue injuries, the toe taps, and they've gone through each of those, and they've made again specific to Jarrah's situation using the stimulus. Again, you can see the example. Jarrah is referred to him, and again Jarrah in the passive movement. They've gone through a skills test specific to rugby league. So again, a deep understanding of each stage in a systematically produced answer. So that's what we're looking for. Do you get into a band at the top bracket for a 7 or 8 in this particular question?